The problem I think that may have changed it is the release of futures. So futures allow speculators to put downward pressure on the price of commodities. So whether it's oil futures or gold futures, we all know the gold story, right? JP Morgan last year paid a 900, well, okay, they didn't pay. They only paid 60, but they were fined $920 million. Now, wait, if you're fined 920, but you only have to pay 60, well, then you're only fined 60. But the headline was they were fined $920 million, but they paid 60, but they made billions spoofing the price of gold, using futures to artificially suppress the price of gold. Because if in the old days, if I wanted to sell you a barrel of oil, I actually had to have the oil. I couldn't just promise to sell you a paper barrel of oil. I actually had to have oil. Well, futures allow people to come in and push the price down. So if you look at the release of the Bitcoin future, December 18th, 2017, that was the day of the peak. And as soon as the banks could pump the price down, they did. And then that causes the reflexivity, to your point, that pushed the price to low levels. Guess what happened this time? We got all the way up to 60 something K, and everybody was all excited, went from 10K to 60K. And then Burry came out and said he was short, and the market collapsed. And we went all the way down to 29, and then we rebounded all the way back to 69 by November. And everybody's like, see, the stock to flow's right. It's going to be great. And then bang, why? They approved the futures ETF instead of the spot ETF. And that was intentional, 100% intentional by the SEC, being paid by, I shouldn't say paid, influenced by the banks to regulate the growth of this disruptive industry. Because what was happening is money was leaving the banking world, the fiat world. And when a bank is super levered and they lose deposits, their leverage ratios go up and they get very nervous. So as the money left into digital assets, stable coins and Bitcoin, they got freaked out. So they're like, you need to stop this. So by allowing the futures to exist, it allows the big banks to spoof the price down. And once that price starts to fall, the over-leveraged speculators get liquidated. I tell the story, and I shouldn't tell it, on a person I know, I won't name names, who called me and said, they stole my Bitcoin. I'm like, what are you talking about? I said, well, I was at BitMEX. I'm like, stop. You levered your Bitcoin and you didn't make the margin call and they seized the collateral. No, they stole my Bitcoin. I'm like, no, you are an idiot. You lost your Bitcoin by levering it up and not making the margin call. Now, some have said that those firms actually prey on people by promising them big returns to get them to lever up so they can seize the collateral. I'm like, oh shit, that would be theft. But I'm not going to accuse anybody of anything. So that's a long answer to your point. But the cycle is driven by greed and fear. Greed and fear is reflexive, as you said. And if anyone hasn't read Soros's book on reflexivity, you need to. And it's a philosophy book. And don't read the first one, because it's impossible to read. Read his second one that is still hard to read, but it's not about the first book. I mean, I literally had to put down because it's just gobbledygook. The second one is actually really good and talks about it. In fact, I actually wrote a paper where I interpreted that book. If anyone cares, you can just Google Morgan Creek quarterly letters on Soros. But ultimately, price does not have to reflect value. It can deviate from value above or below for a meaningful period of time. That's one thing. Two, reflexivity is real. You know, a body in motion will stay in motion until an equal and opposite force is applied. And so once things start going up, they'll go up longer than you think. And once they start going down, they'll go down longer than you think. And ultimately, the big thing for me is we're in the then they fight you stage. So Gandhi famously said, although he didn't say it, was some other guy who I should give credit to, but I can't remember his name, that said, you know, first they ignore you, then they laugh at you, then they fight you, then you win. And I modified it to say, look, 2009 to 15, first they ignore you. Bitcoin, bunch of nerds, geeks, drug dealers, bad guys, whatever, ignore you. 16 to 21, then they laugh at you. Look at those nerds and geeks and stupid, just playing with this magic internet money. Ridiculous. 2022 to 2027, then they fight you. And this fight is going to be tough. It's going to be real. And it's just getting started, right? The stablecoin stuff, after the Luna debacle, it is not a coincidence, not a coincidence that the day after the Luna debacle, Yellen's up talking about regulating stablecoins. Not a coincidence. And the people who said that they didn't cause it, I'm going to call bullshit on that. Me think they'll off protest too much. So all of this comes back to, in the then they fight you phase, it's going to be probably lower for longer. It's going to be tougher for longer. But the thing is, we've already won. This is sound money. Bitcoin is sound money. Bitcoin is digital gold. Bitcoin is the base layer rail for the future of finance. That is inevitable. And so, but we just got to get through this phase.